Okay, why don't we now talk about how tissues are classified? We talked about the basic functions of them. Now let's look at how we get to name the different tissues or to name the different types of epithelial tissues. And there's two different ways that we name epithelial tissue, and we use them both together. So your first one that we're going to be dealing with is you can name epithelial tissue based on their shape. That's a P. So we can base it on their shape, and then we can also base it on the number of layers that epithelial tissue. So the layers, we're talking about the cells as well. So this is going to be the shape of the cell, and then this one is going to be the on how many layers of cells that we have. So let's first look at the shape, and let's discuss this. The shape of the cell, and I should first point this out, is based on the appearance of that cell on the apical or luminal surface, or apical or luminal edge. Okay, so this is going to be, let me just write that in parentheses so that you have it. So E-N-A, luminal edge or surface, either one, because your skin, it's an apical surface. There's not a lumen. This is not a luminal surface. Luminal is like within the tube. So this would be an apical surface. So let's look at the different ways we can classify epithelial tissue by shape. So the first one, let me change colors here. Let's do this. So the first one is going to be and so it's a very, very thin. So that dot in the middle, that's the nucleus, okay? So you can see that the width of this cell is very, very thin, okay? This one is called squamous, S-Q-U-A-M-O-U-S. So it's squamous, or think of squished. So it's a very, very thin cell that we're looking at. The other one we're looking at is going to be this way. And then the third one and those dots are also the nucleus. So this one, what do you think this one's called? Okay, if this is a squished and it's squamous, this one is going to be cuboidal. Okay, so it's got a square. It's not that pointy on the edges, but it's more of a cube shape. So the width, the depth, and the height are all roughly about the same. And then that takes us to this last one, and so this one, it's taller than it is wide, so it's more of a column shape. So this is columnar. So that's columnar, taller than it is wide. Okay, so that's these are your basic shapes that we're talking about on how we name epithelial tissue. These are either going to be a squamous tissue, it'll be a cuboidal tissue, or a columnar tissue. Now there's two other funky ones out there that we'll come back to in just a minute. Let's first do the number of layers. So with the layers, the two things that we're going to be dealing with is you're going to have a single layer. So let me do one layer. So that's number one. Okay. So a single layer of cells, and the other one is greater than one layer. So that could be two or more. Okay, so it could be 20, 30 layers. So let's look at what these actually would look like. Okay, so let's first do squamous. So we have on this one, oh, I should name these first of all. So a single layer is known as simple, and this is stratified. More than one layer is stratified. Stratified, okay? So let's see what these look like. So simple squamous, we can have simple cuboidal, and we can have simple columnar, or we can have stratified squamous, stratified cuboidal, or stratified columnar. Okay, so let's look at simple squamous, then simple cuboidal, simple columnar. So simple squamous, we're going to have just a thin layer, and you got the nucleus in each one of those. Okay, this is one layer thick, so these are squished, so that would be called a simple squamous epithelial tissue. Okay, so that's how you name this one. Stratified squamous is going to be somewhat similar, so let's do this. Now, go back. How do we name the shape of cells? What is the name based on? You've got this characteristic, whether it's squished, cuboidal, or columnar in shape, but you name it based on the luminal or apical surface. So if this is your, let's just say this is your apical side or luminal side. So let's do that, the luminal space. So let's look at this one. And we're coming down here. Ooh, that's kind of a funky one. And what are you noticing on what I'm drawing here? Okay. The lower level in this area, it looks cuboid in shape. Okay, but again, how do we name the cell? It's named based on the cell's appearance at the luminal or apical edge. So this edge on the luminal side is a squished appearance. So it's a squamous appearance. And this is basically stratified squamous because we have more than one layer. And in this case, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 layers are represented on this image. Okay. And your free surface is squished in appearance. Okay. These are all squamous cells in this case. One of the other characteristics of epithelial tissue, and what am I missing on this? And who can name this? What am I drawing right now? Okay. Give you a hint. Epithelial tissue has the free end, which is your apical or luminal side, and the other side connects to what? Let me just draw this. I don't hear some of you talking, so okay. Both of those, I'm just going to be abbreviating. No, it doesn't stand for bowel movement, okay. That is your basement membrane. So remember, the basolateral surface of epithelial tissue connects to the basement membrane. Okay. Let's see, what else do we want to do on this one? We'll come back to that in just a second. Let me move this over, and let's do the additional odd ones that we brought up before. What color did I try to do this the same color just so have consistency? Yellowish, that kind of stuff. Okay, so let's do the other styles, other shapes, and how we name. Okay, so we have squamous, we have cuboidal, and we have columnar. So let's do another one, and we're going to call it pseudostratified. Pseudostratified. Squamous. Ooh, no. Let's back that one up. Let me get rid of that. Not squamous. not squamous. Okay, pseudostratified columnar epithelial tissue, okay? And most pseudostratified columnar is ciliated. So that would be pseudostratified ciliated columnar epithelium. Okay, so let's take a look at what this would actually look like. And pseudostratified, the key thing with this one is it looks like there's more than one layer, but in reality, there is only one layer. So if you were to looking at this tissue underneath the microscope, it looks like there's multiple layers, thus the word stratified. But since it is not stratified, it is pseudostratified. Now, why is that? Okay, two issues on this one. Well, we know what columnar is. Those are where they're taller than they are wide, and that each one of these cells, each one of these columnar cells attached to the basement membrane. Not all of the columnar cells reach the apical surface. So some do, some do not. The other characteristic about a pseudostratified columnar epithelial is that the nuclei are at different levels. Normal columnar epithelial tissue, the nucleus is closer to the basolateral surface on the basement membrane, and it is at an even level. The pseudostratified columnar, the nucleus are scattered throughout. So let me show you another one of my fantastic drawing abilities here. And again, not all of the columnar cells reach the apical surface, but they all let me just do another one here. Okay. It doesn't look like your standard columnar cells. Let me throw in the nucleus. So we'll have a nucleus here. We can have a nucleus up here. We can have one here. We can have one there, one here, one here, one here. Okay. So they're scattered throughout, and it looks, when you're looking at underneath the microscope, it looks as if there are multiple layers, but they all connect to a basement membrane, which is down here, but not all of them reach the apical surface. Okay, so these kind of would not be reaching up there. Those do. Okay, what I mean by the ciliated portion, the ciliated, let me just change this color so it's at least you can visualize it. Ciliated would be this side. Okay, and the ciliated epithelium helps to move mucus across its surface. Okay, so you're going to find the ciliated epithelial tissue in much of your respiratory tract or your trachea. And in this case, you're going to have mucus. And when you breathe in dust, then that dust gets trapped in the mucus, and then the cilia, little hair cells, move that debris up towards your throat, where you can either swallow it or cough it out. Okay. The cilia, these little structures, okay, those little structures are also what dies when you smoke. So if you smoke and the cilia, those little hair cells, die off, you can't clear your passageways as well. That's why you end up coughing to try to bring up some of this stuff, okay? So that is going to be the pseudostratified columnar epithelium. Oftentimes it's ciliated, not always, but oftentimes it is. The other funky one is going to be transitional. Transitional epithelium. Now, this is located just in a few areas of the body. The key thing, and see if you can figure out where I'm going with this. The key thing is that transitional epithelium transitions from one shape to another. Now, you're going to find this in your bladder, some parts of the ureter and the urethra. And what you're looking at on this is what happens, and everybody's experienced this, that you take this big gulp, a 44-ounce drink, when you are starting a very long road trip. What do you notice after a little while? You got to go to the bathroom, okay? And why do you have to go to the bathroom? Your bladder has filled up. Now, the bladder is not a firm, set, solid structure. It changes shapes, okay? It's just a little bag, and as the bladder fills up, it stretches. So in order to allow for this stretching to occur, those cells have to be able to deform or change its shape. So that's going to be called transitional. Now, what those look like is something like this. So let's just draw. This is going to be kind of at the basolateral surface. Okay, so they're going to be more of a cuboidal in shape. Now, again, how do we name the shape? We name the shape by the appearance of the cell where. Okay. It's going to be at the luminal edge or the luminal surface. So if this is your basal side, so let me draw a basement membrane on here just so you can help to visualize where that is. So this is your basolateral surface, and that's the basement membrane. The luminal side, the appearance of the cell in an undistended or non-distended shape. So this is where your bladder is empty, okay? You have the upper cells that take a rounded appearance. That's kind of what it's going to look like in the non-distended shape. Now, as your bladder fills up and it starts to distend, and yes, you can even feel the bladder distending at times, okay, what you're looking at is this upper level, this luminal surface, actually can change its shape. Okay, so that round little bubble, bladder, so let's do the bladder since it's rounded, okay? And underneath it, you're going to be looking like at the cuboidal shape on this. Okay, and then of course you're going to have the basement membrane down here. So you can see the difference between this one and this one, the shape, it transitions in the shape. Okay. Let's see, what I missed some, or we talked about the function of transitional. It changes shape to allow for distension of the bladder. And then once you void or empty the bladder, it reverts back to this shape again. Pseudostratified, we know it looks like multiple layers, thus stratified, but pseudo is not. The nuclei are at different levels, but all the columnar cells are attached to the basement membrane. These are often found in your respiratory tract, like your trachea, and so forth. So let's do the function of the other ones. Let's go back to this area, and let's talk about what the function of this one is. So we have a very squished cell, very, very thin. So simple squamous epithelium is going to be really important for diffusion. Now, one of the things I want you to think about is where in the body will you find simple squamous epithelium? Okay, if it's one layer thick and its focus is to allow for diffusion, where would you find that? Okay, the cuboidal and columnar Oh, let me, see, that's going to be simple squamous. So let's do stratified. Okay, so we have multiple layers here. As you can see, the multiple layers for stratified, that is going to be allowing for protection. Okay, protection. We're going to have stratified squamous epithelium on our skin. We're going to have stratified squamous epithelium within our digestive tract, within the mouth or oral cavities. Now, how is that protecting? Well, we have a lot of abrasion going on. Okay, when you have the abrasion, we need multiple layers of protection. And when these layers are abraded and they fall off, okay, the cells down here are growing, and when they grow, they're pushing cells up towards the top. Okay, so these are constantly being replaced, so they're highly regenerative. They are undergoing mitosis or cell division very frequently. So these cells are always falling off and always replacing. So that's going to be the stratified portion, is going to be always dealing with some form of a protection. The simple squamous is allowing for diffusion. Okay. So I said we're protection: skin, oral cavity, vagina, anal cavity. That's all going to be protection. Where are you going to find diffusion? I'll let you figure that one out. Cuboidal and columnar, both of these together, okay, deal with secretion. Okay, so secretion. So this is where it's going to be secreting mucus. It can be secreting hormones, sweat, different things like that. In addition to secretion, the columnar also does is well designed for absorption. Okay, so you're going to find those in your digestive tract, where you're absorbing nutrients through the digestive organs. So I believe that covers anything else I want to cover for this. Nope, I think that covers it. So the next one we're going to be doing, let's talk a little bit about glands. And I think we might be wrapping up after that. Thanks.